Thanks so much for inviting me to really share my journey regarding clinical research delivery, which I think is, really important. I think it's important that we recognise that there's lots of ways in which we can contribute to research. Some of us are supporting research, delivering research, and actually leading on research as well. So really looking forward to sharing this with you all. So what I thought I'd look at today is my career journey as a clinical research nurse, which started some time ago now. I can see that there's quite a lot of people in the room that are clinical research delivery colleagues as well, but there may be some of you who aren't, so it'd be really interesting to know if you don't work within clinical research delivery. If you want to pop that in the chat, that'd be good to know what the audience is today. And also, I'm going to look at what the impact of patients, of what research is on patient outcomes, which is why we do what we do. I thought it'd be only fair to look at the key components and challenges of clinical research delivery. That's changed over the years, and the climate in which we're working in now has definitely changed. And then I thought I'd end up really on the opportunities across MFT and also across the wider NIHR infrastructure, really, to be able to deliver on clinical research. So I thought I'd look at that. So I hope that's all what you think you're coming for today. I'll start my journey. So my journey started quite a long time ago. I always wanted to be a nurse. So as you can see, I'm in the outfit in the middle with the red cape when I was about 3 years old. So I had no hesitation. I always wanted to be a research nurse, and I did. I started my research training in 1990, and this is me as a student nurse in the white dress. And those are my grandparents, my granddad and my grandma, who were so proud of me that I was a nurse. But actually, I was one of the. I wanted to go to university, and I was one of the first degree nurses. So that's a picture of myself. And when I showed my boys these pictures last night, and my youngest son said to me, "Oh, you look like a 1950s nurse, Mum." And I thought he was talking about the one with the red cape when I was like 3, and he wasn't. He was talking about the one in my white uniform, and I thought, gosh, that just goes to show, doesn't it? How our uniforms have changed. And actually, I can see I'm not even adhering to uniform policy there because I've got my wrist watch on there as well. So this was me when I first started, and my aspirations to be a nurse. And I don't know where it came from, actually, because none of my family are nurses, and sometimes you find that it does run in families, doesn't it? But it wasn't. So I was the first one and the only one since either. So this is how the career went, really. So and what I want to do really is just highlight some key points and some key individuals and some key experiences that got to me where I am today, really, and have made me the nurse that I am. So like I say, I started in, I graduated in 1994, one of the first degree nurses. So I knew I wanted to do a degree and do nursing. It just dovetailed really nicely for me. So once I qualified, it was very heavy on research throughout my career, which is probably where it all started from. So research was threaded throughout, but it wasn't applied research. It was always about the quantitative, qualitative research, the theory behind it, which I did enjoy, but it wasn't then applied into practice. So when I qualified then, because I'd done my training, I wanted to get a couple of years really to be able to get my clinical skills up to date, or really embed them, get up to speed with those. So I was a staff nurse at the Manchester Royal Infirmary on Ward 25, and then I moved over to Ward 9, which was a vascular surgical ward. So I'd done sort of cardiovascular care of patients with MI, strokes and vascular operations and procedures. So definitely from a cardiovascular background. And then when I was there, though, I was looking after patients and treating the outcomes, which I thought, I really want to be on the preventative side. I want to prevent these MIs from happening, these strokes from happening. And how do I do that so I can, prevent them from occurring? So I moved into a vascular specialist nurse role in 1997 at the old Withington Hospital in South Manchester. And there I took the role as a sort of like as a specialist nurse, but as a preventative role, so health and care, lifestyle advice for patients as well. Now I really enjoyed that role, but it was quite an isolating role. And when I was in the office, there was a couple of girls in the office who were doing some research, And I thought, ooh, that looks a bit interesting, that. Because what they're doing is them finding the evidence for what I'm providing the patients for the advice on, which is going to prevent the outcomes from happening that when I was a staff nurse on the ward from occurring. So I thought, right, that's where I want to go. I want to go into that research nursing. So I was fortunate to get a research nurse post back at the MRI in 1999, and I worked on a hypertension study called the ASCOT study, which I'll come back to later on. But basically, at the time, it was looking after comparing ACE inhibitors and calcium channel blockers versus the beta blockers and diuretics, and it was a huge study. And be interested to know if anybody else worked on it actually. And we recruited nearly 800 patients into this study, and it was really a very much of a nurse-led clinic that we ran. And I really, that job for me was one of the best jobs I ever had. It was an F grade, which is a band 6 now, so show my age, pre-agenda for change, but I really enjoyed that. And it grew and it grew from a research point of view, in the more studies that we took on. I then moved into, did the master in clinical research. So I was on the first cohort at the University of Manchester to do my masters. And I really enjoyed this as well. And this was an opportunity for me to undertake my own research. So I did a qualitative piece of research. I'm definitely a quantitative girl. I've worked in clinical trials, you can see, all my career. But I wanted to have a bit of a taste of qualitative research. So I did, and I did some interviews, and I really enjoyed it, and really consolidated all my knowledge on research, really. And when I finished my masters, the first thing my supervisor said to me was, when are you doing your PhD? And I thought, I'm not. So I've enjoyed it, but actually I know that I'm a delivery girl and my heart is on clinical research delivery. But I do feel that that masters has given me that appreciation of those of us who do want to lead on research and what those processes are. So following that, I was really fortunate then to move into a more senior post within R&I at MFT, and I got the matron post. And this was a really significant time, I would say, in my career, because it was me having that more helicopter view of the whole of the organisation, and we brought all the teams that were sat in different areas across MFT into one place, and supported from an R&I point of view, management and a professional accountability. And then what happened here was I had a lead nurse at the time, and sadly our lead nurse died, and that was a significant point in my career. She had been she was my manager, she was my mentor, and she was also a friend. And it was quite a tough time in being able to take on the role of lead nurse, because I was fortunate to take on the acting role, then the lead nurse. And it was about supporting a workforce at the time that I'd lost a colleague, but equally going through that personal grief of my own as well, was really quite a challenging time. But I think what was significant for me was the people that I had around me, both at home but also at work as well, that helped get through that period of time. So it really sort of framed me as a leader, and to be able to be compassionate to oneself as well as supporting others, I think was really important, and a really important lesson I learned. So from there, I moved into the head of nursing position, and in 2020, and then just as the pandemic hit us, which was another very significant moment in my career. And for those of us who work in research delivery, I think I will always say that, research is what has got us through that pandemic, and it definitely put us on a higher level of visibility to our organisations and to the country, really, from what we were doing from a research perspective in terms of our trials such as recovery, and also our vaccine studies as well. We were elevated to be able to, this is what we had to do to deliver on it. And then in 2022, I had the opportunity to go on a secondment as a Deputy Director of Nursing of one of the hospitals at MFT at Wythenshawe. And when I went here, I thought I was going to go and embed research across the whole of Wythenshawe Hospital. And I didn't, because I was too busy spinning plates in terms of patient flow, what was coming through ED, and it just wasn't what I thought I was going to be able to achieve. But what it did do, it taught me a very important lesson of how difficult it is to engage and embed research in our clinical areas if you sit outside of an R&I setting. And it also taught me that we are using the wrong language with our clinical based colleagues outside of R&I as well, and that we need to change the narrative to be able to engage and to be able to support them, because as we know, research is everybody's business. I then came back with all this knowledge, which was fantastic, and then I came into my current post as Assistant Chief Nurse for R&I, and like Jude has mentioned, I'm also chair of the Association UK Lead Research Nurses, which is a real privilege to hold that position. And then I was really fortunate also to take on the Health and Care Director role across the NIHR Regional Research Delivery Network for the Northwest. This is just this is fantastic opportunity, I think, for myself, but also what was really instrumental in this for us as NMAHPs is that we didn't have a senior post, we didn't have a senior NMAHP around the SLT table at the previous CRN, and now we have. So I'm our voice at that table, and I think that's really important then, that we don't look at just research at a local organisational perspective, but actually we're looking at how we serve our community across the Northwest as well. So so that's me from a career perspective, and I thought I'd share with you some photos, because I can't do this without people think that you know, Janette as Assistant Chief Nurse, but actually I'm a lot more than that. So this is just some photographs to show you that, you know, I don't wear this uniform at home all the time. Some people think I sleep in it, but some pictures of my family. So my husband, I've got 2 boys, both of which are older now, do you know what I mean? But some we love walking. That's me and my husband. We were in France recently. We love France as well. And the place in the bottom is a reservoir near us. We love going walking around there. And again, I think it's just really important to be able to really show that, you know, you need time outside. It's that work-life balance, isn't it? And you need that time and that space, for that headspace as well outside of work. And then I've put a picture at the bottom of my parents, my mum and dad, who have been immensely supportive throughout the whole of my career as well. So so that's my home family. But actually what's really important as well is that I've got an amazing work family. And I think you have to surround yourself by people at work who have the same vision and the same aims and the same goals as you. And I'm very fortunate. You'll see here that I've got clinical colleagues on here, but what's really important about R&I is that we have operational colleagues as well, and we have research office-based staff. So, you know, you're a full team. You know, everybody comes to that party with different skills, with different experiences, and we come together as one. Yeah, so I just wanted to recognise colleagues that I've worked with for a long time for some of these as well. And you'll see the pictures here. This is Red for Research. This is last year's. So we'll have to redo it again tomorrow, won't we? So, so what do we all do then in clinical research? So, I think when you're in it, you just do it, don't you? And but to explain it to somebody else, I think it is a challenge. It's in some senses, really. So, so what is clinical research? So it's about planning, managing, and conducting research studies safely, effectively, efficiently, to generate reliable and, really importantly, high quality data. So we're going from the clinical and operational workforce who support from the beginning to the end concept of doing this process. So the study setup is looking at the designing of protocols. Sometimes we're not involved in that. Sometimes we can be. Sometimes a protocol is presented to us. We're then involved in obtaining regulatory and ethical approvals, and obviously the site preparation as well. All the pre-work that we do even before we get patients recruiting into studies. So recruitment and enrolment in patients as well is about finding eligible participants, which sounds dead easy when you say it quick, but we all know it's not. And a lot goes into actually doing the feasibility for these studies, isn't it, to making sure we have got patients to be able to recruit. And how do we recruit these patients? How do we ensure that we've got an equitable access to our studies as well? How do we ensure that our patients, the diversity of our patients is there to ensure that we've got a really good sample size of patients? And then we conduct the studies as well. So that's about managing the day-to-day activities. So that could be about collecting data, monitoring patients, it could be about administering treatment, etc. And then we move into the data management. So we need to ensure we collect really accurate data. We need to do it in a timely manner as well, and we need to enter, and it needs to be validated. So the collection of the data, you know, the patient is at the centre of everything we do, and the patient's experience about being involved in that research is crucial. But unless we collect the data, then the data is only as good as what we put into any system, and we've got to make sure that that is robust and accurately documented as well. So then we've got compliance and quality control. So we know that we've got a lot of regulatory standards within research, and you know, including our good clinical practice as well. And we all need to make sure that we're compliant with that. We need to make sure we do that to ensure that we've got good integrity within the trial as well. And then finally, it's about the closeout and the reporting, including the archiving, which we all love to do, don't we? But it's about looking at the data and then reporting the findings as well. So that's what clinical research is. And why we do it is because we know that doing research, and those organisations that do research have better patient outcomes. But sometimes it's really difficult to be able to demonstrate that and what the impact of research has been on patients as well. So I wanted to share this with you about some of the impacts that we've had at MFT on research. And a lot of you will have seen these that come out in our comms as well. But the one in the middle I want to point out to is about the vaccine one. And that's a picture of of Claire Cole, who's one of my colleagues, who was the first patient at MFT to take part in a COVID vaccine study, and she was consented into it. And we had a huge impact on the vaccine rollout nationally as well. And so, you know, the impact on that for not just us locally within Manchester, but nationally is really, really important. And then also to come back to when I mentioned about the ASCOT study as well, which I worked on years ago, the Anglo-Scandinavian Cardiac Outcomes Trial. So the ASCOT study, I was talking to an individual only a few days ago, and we were talking about actually the results of that study. We know were ploughed into NICE guidance, and that still determines our first line of treatment for our patients with hypertension. And for me, that means, you know, I was involved in a study where I recruited patients. I recruited those patients over about 8 years. We looked after them. I remember at the time, you know, they saw me get married. They saw me have my 2 children. The results of that have then gone into NICE guidance. And then that is still how our patients are looked after today. So I just feel really privileged that I've been part of that journey. And you can see the impact of a lot of our research studies. And we know, don't we, some of our research studies, you know, the findings don't come out for years and years later. But what was so amazing about the pandemic was that it had to be all the platform studies that we had to get those results out really, really quick, and that quick turnaround to be able to move patient care forward. So it's great that we have impact on our patients and patient outcomes, but there are challenges with clinical research delivery, and I think it's only right that we do acknowledge it as well. So these are some of the challenges from you know, we do have a lot of regulations. We have a lot of ethical compliance that we need to look at when recruiting and managing our patients. We have difficulty in finding eligible participants sometimes. Sometimes it can be quite a strict inclusion-exclusion criteria. For example, in terms of language, needing to speak potentially English as a first language. So it's about looking at challenging some of those. So some of those things that come forward from sponsors is really important. We need to ensure that we've got diversity, as I mentioned before, and representativeness of patient populations as well. We can have high dropout rates, which can then impact, obviously, the study statistical analysis down the line. So as those of us who are involved in that, it's important that we we want to maintain our patients, not just recruiting them, but it's about how we consistently see these patients. Sometimes we can be seeing them for years and years and years. So that follow-up and that relationship building is really important, and that patient experience as well is important. So operational logistical complexities, we can have multiple sites sometimes working on the same study. We have operational difficulties across Greater Manchester and also the Northwest. We have a research van that can go out to be able to deliver research outside of the hospital setting as well. So these are all logistical issues that need to be sorted before we actually go out to start recruiting, which we all do like being able to resolve those issues that we have. We've got data management, which I've talked about already. It's ensuring that we've got really accurate data to make sure that the clinical data, the integrity of it is spot on. We've also got obviously about handling large volumes of data. We need to do that securely as well. We've got technology and infrastructure. A lot of organisations, including MFT, we now are on an EPR system, electronic patient record system. That brings its challenges, but also advantages as well. And obviously we've got a lot of new technologies that are coming out, like remote wearables and that type of thing that we need to be looking at through our technology side of things as well. We've got financial constraints, so it's costly to be able to run clinical trials. We know that there's not an infinite amount of money. A lot of us get funded through the NIHR from our regional research delivery networks, or we're funded commercially through grants, etc., through our other hosted infrastructures. But there are financial constraints, and it's about how we manage that effectively as well, really. We've obviously got the challenges of working with sponsors, with CROs, regulatory bodies as well. So we can feel like we're answering to lots of people at certain times, not least our own organisation. And then the challenges, as I've mentioned as well, is we need to make sure that these studies are robust, ethical, to be able to ensure that the scientific and the design challenges are upheld as well, really. So, and I think also at the moment it's looking at the political environment in which we're working in, and the organisational environment that we're working in from a research point of view in terms of changes nationally. It's very difficult for organisations. A lot of us have got colleagues that are going through consultations and changes within organisations, and it can and it will affect research delivery as well, in terms of that, requiring support from other colleagues across the organisation. So it is a challenging time, and we need to try and address that. So one of the ways that we look at that from an MFT point of view is looking at our strategy. So in 2024, we had a new MFT, a new trust strategy released. It was a 5-year strategy, and it had 5 aims to it. And one of the aims is specifically about delivering world-class research and innovation that improves people's lives. And this has been a game changer for us at MFT, because now we've got it as part of the strategy. So not just us in R&I delivering on research. Research is everybody's business, and everybody has this aim that we're trying to achieve. And the idea is that it will strengthen our delivery, that we will strengthen our delivery of world-class research by developing our infrastructure, supporting staff, patients and communities to take part as well. So for me, this has been a real game changer, and hopefully will mean that it's not just a group of people that are responsible for delivering research and innovation. It is a wider colleagues that will do that as well. So to support the MFT strategy, we then have an R&I strategy which serves the overarching MFT one. And and this is about really drilling down about how research and innovation can improve the lives of patients, and what the opportunities are for patients to take part in clinical studies and evaluations as well. It looks at NMAHP led research that's included in there, and it looks at all sorts of elements that will help serve the overarching MFT strategy as well. So for me, it's about research and innovation to drive a positive change. We can see that we want to have a look at to work with partners to help people live longer. We want R&I to be the place where people enjoy working, learning and building a career. We want to continue to deliver our world-class research as well, and we want to provide high quality safe care and excellent outcomes and experience. So I think it's, you know, we know that we need to have stronger connections with developing our local communities as well, with our service users and staff across MFT. We know that the direction from government is about research going from hospital to the community settings. We're going from analog to digital as well. So all those things that are coming down nationally, we know that we need to look at locally as well. So we're very keen to look at how we can, we're delivering research here at MFT, but actually how do we get out to our communities? How do we make sure we've got the right patients and we're offering the right opportunities for our patients to take part? So we need to be going out to them. We know that we need to be working with our community settings, you know, with our residential areas, with our pharmacies, etc. So the challenge is how do we all do that as well? And that's what we're looking at going forward. So as I mentioned, you know, research is everybody's business. So it's not just about, like I say, just from R&I dedicated employed clinical research nurses, midwives, and other operational colleagues. It's about everybody's business. So it's those of us who can support research. So that may be that there might be staff in clinical areas who are might identify somebody. You might have a specialist nurse or an ACP, for example, who might see somebody that might be suitable for research. You've got those of us who deliver research, as I've described through my career pathway. And then you've got those of us who want to lead on research. So those of us who want to do, you might be doing your master's, you might be doing your PhD, you could be a pre-doc, you could be a postdoc, and that's when Catalys comes into play. And do you know what I mean? From an MFT perspective, and where we can support you with your research career development going forward. But I think what's really important is we've got several, you know, we've got a couple of strategies, and we've also got national documents as well that are coming out from the Chief Nursing Officer of England, and also same for midwifery, and also AHPs, which is putting research really, really at the heart of these documents and the heart of what we're wanting to achieve for a strategic plan for research for each of these clinical groups. So with all this kind of evidence and all this strategic direction, we're in a really fantastic place to be able to really push forward clinical research delivery. And what I've done on here is I've put a couple of links through as well, because it's dead easy to say research is everybody's business, but everybody thinks it's people in R&I or R&D to do it. So how do we make it everybody's business? So there's lots of career development opportunities for MMAPs through the NIHR. There's oodles, there's the Senior Research Leader Programme, there's the Principal Investigator Pipeline Programme, so there's lots of different opportunities. A lot of you might be aware about the self-assessment of organisational readiness tool SORT that came through NHS England, that a lot of organisations have looked at to see how ready are we to support MMAPs in doing their research, how ready are we from a research organisational perspective, and we've done that here at MFT as well, which Jude has led on. And then there's also the toolkit that's come from NHS England also for matrons and other healthcare leaders. And this is really, this is a really good resource to be able to signpost people to start looking at how they embed research within their area. And what we've managed to do at MFT is we've got research on the appraisal documentation. So everybody has to look at that from a, you know, to have a conversation about research. Again, not just those of of us in R&I, but across the whole organisation. We've also got research as part of our quality assurance and clinical accreditation programme. So everybody's asked about research, you know, how is research embedded in your area? How do you implement evidence-based practice? What does evidence-based practice mean to you in your area? So there's a lot of tools and a lot of support and a lot of guidance in there of how we can help support clinical colleagues. And then I think for me, going back full circle, really, when I did my research, like my degree, it was definitely about that quantitative, qualitative, and it wasn't clinically applied. And now what we've got is we have an NIHR pre-registration nursing midwifery toolkit, which provides undergraduates with an understanding of clinical research from when at the time of then they graduate. So what we're really looking to do is how we actually implement this within our local HEIs across Greater Manchester and across the Northwest as well. So actually, when students are having their training, they are understanding what we are doing in our day-to-day roles, so they know and they understand that actually having the opportunity to take in clinical research, having the opportunity to take part in clinical research is a career choice, because it wasn't at the time for me. It's something that I observed and I wanted then to get into, but I would really like it that actually people can choose to come into clinical research at the time of graduation, and therefore then, you know, they don't go 12 months doing something. They can come straight into a clinical research role, and that's something that we're looking at as well. So I just wanted to say, you know, thank you to everybody for listening. I'm more than happy to take questions, and I've also put the link on there to the R&I strategy, which those of you who are in R&I will have seen before. Those of you who are not, but within MFT, you can get from the link, and also externally you can obtain as well. I'm more than happy to share it. So any questions, anybody?